This is Chloe Belinkit, and I will be presenting on the best-selling cards in the sets Black Bolt and White Flare combined in the Pokemon TCG. So when choosing my top 10, I paid most of my attention to sales volume, market price, and market price changes, trying to strike a balance between these three. In my eyes, the best-selling cards are those that are selling a lot at a relatively high price, considering the card's history and the type of card it is. So I started my top 10 differently than last week, and also from all the others that I sent in before this. Essentially, because we're looking at two different sets that have quite a few overlap. It has a number of overlap in cards, and so they've been put together, but websites still treat them as two separate sets. And so what I did is I took the price charting most popular top 8 from each set, and then I also did the same thing for TCG player best-selling, the top 8 from each set. I combined the cards, which of course have a lot of overlap. So we have 19 cards in total, and then I put them in here and we collected some data about them. I have the TCG price point, which is the TCG market price for that card, the PC price point, which is the price charting ungraded price for that card, and then I averaged those two, as can be seen here, to get our average price point. And then from there, I also collect the 3-month price change via TCG player based on their graph. And then I make rankings based off of individual factors that I'm considering. So here I talk about sales volume, market price, and market price changes. I create a ranking of all of 19 based off their price point, sorting based off of this, and then a price change based off of this. And then I make a sales volume ranking that's a little bit more objective, a little bit more my thinking, just looking at the TCG graph, seeing the average amount of sales there, while also referencing eBay. Because TCG player, when they calculate sales volume, they're really only looking at their own sales. And eBay, there's a lot of more stuff that's sold on eBay, so I make sure to look at their recent sales on there too. And then from there, I assign points via rankings. So in this case, rank 19 would be 1 point, and first place would be 19 points. And each card would get a certain number of points, into which I put into the best sellers calculator, in which I get the final amount of points that will determine their rankings based off of the equation I have here, which is price point times 1 plus price change times 2 plus sales volume times 4. Sales volume is my most weighted because in my mind, you can't be a bestseller if you're not selling. The sales volume matters a lot to me when I calculate bestsellers. Next is price change, just price change over price point, because I think a bestseller would be considered more. I think a card that's at a low price but has a positive price change would be considered a better seller than a card with a high price point but a negative price change, if that makes sense. And so for me, price change is more weighted than price point. But yeah, from this I create my final ranking, which is here, and which is what we're going to go over here. And then, yeah, from here, each slide will contain an explanation of why I believe it is within the top 10, as well as the rankings within each category, just so that you can see how it performs in each category and maybe why it's placed where it is. In this case, my top 10 is in a particular order because I did calculate it based off points, and therefore it kind of is a ranking. But in general, you can also take it as in general. These are just the 10 cards that I think would be in the top 10. And then I have a few honorable mentions. Specifically, I have 2 or 3. Technically, it's 3, but we'll get to there when we get there. And honorable mentions are just cards that catch my eye for some reason and I want to investigate into a little bit more. But yeah, starting with our first one, which was ranked, which you can see the ranks here. I'm not going to read them out. You can just look at them. Which is Zekrom EX172. So this is a legendary Pokemon. For those who don't know Pokemon, who've never played the game, this is a legendary Pokemon, and it's also one of the Gen 5 mascots, so black and white mascots. This is the legendary Pokemon of, if you play the video game Pokemon Black. So that's why it's popular. We talked about the legendary Pokemon. This is, in terms of advertisement, this was just the advertised chase card of Black Bolt, which made it highly sought after just automatically. It also creates that nostalgia factor for the Pokemon Black video game and generation, and so it appeals to fans a lot, older fans. And the aesthetic, Pokemon really likes the monochrome aesthetic. The dark monochrome aesthetic specifically is very appealing to collectors, and it's a full art, so basically all of these are going to be full art. I'm pretty sure there's only going to be one that isn't a full art, but full arts are just appealing to collectors as a whole. They're basically made for collectors, and so they have that collector appeal and are more in demand when it comes to buying. Okay, next card. I still don't know how to say this guy's name. I'm going to say Kyurem, and I'm going to hope it's correct. Kyurem X165. To why I think this character is popular, this is another legendary Pokemon, but specifically, it's not one of the mascots, it's just one that is very lore relevant. This is a legendary Pokemon with multiple forms, so it makes it popular among fans who like strong lore appeal. In terms of media, there is a lot of lore relevance to the narrative of the franchise. I'm pretty sure this legendary is just connected to the other two mascots, and so it's kind of popular by association. And also price point, this one is often cheaper than the mascots. Of the 3 legendaries that are going to be in this list, this is the cheapest of the legendaries, and so if you want a legendary Pokemon card, but you don't want to spend too much money, this is the one you would go for. Reshiram EX153, which is our 3rd legendary Pokemon. As to why it's popular, a lot of the same reasons as Zekrom. Oh god, I'm gonna pronounce everything incorrectly. But legendary Pokemon, it's the other Gen 5 mascot. This is the advertised chase card of White Flare, which makes it highly sought after just automatically. It also has that nostalgia factor, but specifically for the White game, the Pokemon White video game. Once again, it's a monochrome aesthetic which appeals to collectors and which Pokemon loves to push as their chase cards. And it's a full art devMODE. So this one ranked pretty high. I didn't think it was going to. Its sales volume was also pretty sparse, but it ended up being quite up there. As to why, this one seemed to lend a bit more towards players as it has competitive relevance both within the card game and in VGC as far as I've seen. I can't press the backspace for some reason. Also, art style. This is a very unique art style. It's very vibrant, it's very abstract, it's quite out there. I don't know how popular of a Pokemon-sized Metoad is, because I personally don't like him very much. But for those who like him, this is a really good card. And for collectors, this is just really nice art, and it's apparently done by a quite renowned artist who I can't remember the name of right now, but I think it's like Shinji. And once again, it's a full art, so automatically has that appeal. Hilda. So this is our first full art trainer card, of this set, which we've seen before. But as for why she's up there, character popularity, she's the Gen 5 female protagonist, not within the anime, but within the video game. If you chose to be a girl when playing Pokemon Black or Pokemon White, this is who you would be if you... They had custom skin colors and hair colors by then, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, because of that, it makes this card appealing to video game players. Also, this is a trainer card. Trainer cards attract collector speculation, and it also employs the full art trainer effect, which is basically this idea that, or this thing that happens where just basically human character full art trainers tend to become bestsellers in each set. Collectors just tend to really like trainer cards, especially full art trainer cards. And yeah. Solosis, I hope I said that correctly. Solosis 118, which I didn't put the ranking for. I thought I did, but we can check the ranking really quickly. Solosis 118 was, wow. Oh, no, number 1 in price change, which is probably why it's up here. Number 16 in price point, and then number 10 in sales volume. So it's mainly up here because of its way positive price change up here. But as to why it's popular, I would assume the artwork. It's a very simple yet vibrant and nostalgic art style. It makes it very appealing and it's quite cute, so a lot of casual collectors would like it. A lot of people who just open Pokemon cards would also like it a lot. Price point, like I said, it's a lower price point. And so for those who like full arts and art in general, this is very appealing and it encourages more buyers, attracts more buyers. And once again, it's also a full art, so it's up there in demand. Oshawott 105, rank, I'm not going to talk about ranking, sorry. As to why I think this is popular, this is a starter from Gen 5, and starters in general are just popular among the community. But because this is from Gen 5, and Gen 5 was actually a pretty good generation, it lends to that nostalgia factor, and it also makes it a fan favorite. The art style specifically, this is a very cute depiction of a popular cute Pokemon, and it is quite high quality, and the art style is vibrant, it's colorful, and yeah, so it would appeal to collectors and just to fans overall. Also, collectability, once again, the nostalgia appeal attracts collectors of all ages, and it can also be used to complete starter collections. So, low-key, we've kind of covered most starter types from here. But a lot of collectors like to collect starters, so they will collect Oshawott simply because he's a starter. Another Hilda card. This is an interesting one, because not only is it a trainer card, but it isn't a full art, and it also isn't a special art card in any way. I don't even think it has special rarity, but it happens to be up here. And as to why it's up here, we talked about character popularity before. Also, when it comes to playability, this would be the playable version of the full art card. So collectors, when they buy cards, would buy the full art, but players, they would buy the playable versions that they don't want to be afraid of getting them dirty, right? So if you wanted to add Hilda to your deck, even though the full art is prettier and it's more appealing, you would buy this one. Also collectability, this completes the Hilda collection of the set, which basically if you have one of the Hildas, you think to yourself, I might as well get both, especially as a collector. So you'll get this one just because you have the other Hilda. And also price point, this is just a lower price card of a popular character, so it'll attract sales because of that. This is our second to last one, another form of Zekrom EX 158. We have the fact that it's a legendary Pokemon and Gen 5 mascot. We have the nostalgia factor from Pokemon Black game that we talked about earlier. We talked about the dark aesthetic, which appeals to collectors. This is just overall a dark and edgy Pokemon. People who like Corviknight or Absol, they would love Zekrom. And also, once again, this is the playable version. Not the most playable version, but it is a playable version of the Zekrom card. Because, you know, it's still a full art, so it still has that collectability feature. But it's still a more playable version, so players might buy this card instead. Also, collectability, similar to the Hilda card, this would just complete the Zekrom collection. So if you have one of the Zekrom cards, you might want this one as well, just because it's there. And also, price points. This is a lower price point, but still high quality card compared to our original Chase card, our original Zekrom Chase card. This might appeal to buyers. This is just more affordable, and so buyers who don't want to spend that much money on a Zekrom card might get this one instead. And this is our 10th of our top 10. This is Ends Plan 170, another player card. So as to why it's up here, character popularity. This is one of the most popular characters I think overall in Pokemon. He's just a very likable character. If I remember as well, he's media relevant, which means he has a strong connection to the Gen 5 story within the anime and the video game. And this is just an overall appealing art style of a very loved character, and so it's a popular card. It also has the full art trainer effect in fact. Yeah. Moving on to our honorary mentions. These are two cards that I really thought would be in the top 10 because of how pretty they are. Because not only are they the legendary mascot Pokemon that are essentially the chase Pokemon of this set, but they're very pretty art. So as I basically said, these are cards of the main two mascot Pokemon and legendaries of this Pokemon gen, as well as the advertised Pokemon. Not cards, but Pokemon of the set. Even so, they didn't make it in the top 10, simply because of their scarce sales, both on here and on eBay. I didn't find a lot of sales for either of them, here or on eBay. I actually think if you look at the ranking, 166, they're like here. They're quite low. Like I said, I expected these two to be within the top best-selling because of how popular the Pokemon are and how appealing the art style is, at least to me. I actually asked Chloe about this. I asked because a part of me suspected this is because this is one of those keep Pokemon where like, you don't sell this Pokemon, you keep these cards because they're just that pretty and you want to keep them. She said it could also just do with the advertising because these aren't quote-unquote the rarest versions of the Pokemon cards. So because of that, collectors will more chase after the rare versions instead of these ones, and so they just don't have as high of a demand. But these are just in honorary mentions because I expected these to be in the top 10. This is another one. Okay, this is one that I also expected to be in the top 10, but I didn't put because scarce sales volume and also confusion. So Victini 171 and 172 are the same card, but they just have different codes in the different sets. And as you can see from the graphs, this is 171, this is 172. For some reason, they have such different price patterns, and I just found that super interesting. Once again, talked to Chloe about this one. We think that this has to do with the fact that I think they can come with badges, and so people believe that the card from one of the sets is just harder to get than the card from the other set. Which I think I put here, this could be due to the fact that it can be more difficult to find a bad card within one set than it is to find in the other set. And so that just affects these price patterns. But I just found it interesting because they're essentially the same card. And both of these basically tell you art style doesn't play as much of a factor as you would think. It's just a lot of rarity. A lot of the appeal when it comes to buying collector cards is rarity, which is also why their volumes are so scarce. I think that is all for my presentation on the best-selling cards of Black Bolt and White Flare. Thank you.